This video will be concerned with product modification through innovation. We want to look at different approaches to innovation and the way innovation can be implemented at different stages. Sometimes the innovation's right from the start. The product itself is innovative. But sometimes existing products may be modified to be brought more up to date, and in particular more up to date in the context of customers' requirements. So let's talk our way through and see how product modification may be introduced through innovation. We start with innovation, and this is simply referred to as a new product or a new or improved product. And that's really very simple an explanation of innovation. It's a very straightforward concept. It's simply introducing a new product or improving one. This is the commercialization of an invention. An invention is just something new, but when it's used for commercial purposes, it's innovation. It's changing the market as well. It could be a new method of production or distribution. It doesn't have to be a physical product. It could be some new method of working or some new way of doing something. And that could be the innovation. So we're going to focus here on innovation as a new or improved product. So we're going to here focus more so on the physical product, on the tactile product, the one that we can touch. Now, product innovation may take one of two forms. It could be a new product that addresses some niche in the market. Sometimes there's a product range, but customers think if only a product was put on the market which fell in between, it just did something else but was similar to an existing product. So sometimes the marketing personnel may feed this back from their interaction with customers and from their researches, perhaps using focus groups or market research or just simply talking to customers. They pick up on what the customers want, feed that back, and the company then innovates a product, tweaks the product, changes the product in some way to better address or better meet the requirements of the customer. An improved existing product, well, this may be a style change or additional functionality. So it could be a new product completely, or it could be an improved product, an existing product that's simply modified to more directly meet customers' requirements. A totally new product is when customers think, if only there was a product to do the following, that would be very interesting and I would like to buy that product. Customers may think along those lines. And if they feed that back to the marketing personnel or back to the organization, the company could set about developing such a product. Sometimes the customers simply say, the existing product is very good, however, it could be improved if, and they give some description of what they would like to see. So it could be a style change. It could simply look different, be more appealing, be more modern, more streamlined, or more in line with current tastes. Or it could be that the existing product can do additional jobs. It has more functionality. Now, the importance of innovation, well, it's critical for the success of firms. If firms do not innovate, they fall behind. Their products become, if you like, they become stale. They become out of date. And progressively, customers will turn against them and turn on to the products of their competitors. Rapid technological change that leads to innovation may also lead to fast obsolescence. We see this all the time in the computing world. We see new products coming on the market, new phones or new laptops or new tablets or whatever it is, and we think these are amazing and they will never be superseded. And lo and behold, very shortly afterwards, yet another new product comes on the market which makes the previous one obsolete. We see it with mobile phones. We see app developers developing apps for mobile phones which are super. They work very well. But then the operating system on the phone is upgraded, so the apps become out of date. The apps lose their functionality. So app developers have to continuously go back to redesign the apps to meet the operating system on the phone. So innovation is relentless. It just carries on. Fast product development may be necessary to meet customer expectations, which are fueled by better market knowledge. So it's also necessary, just to carry on the sentence, it's also necessary because market competitors are also engaged in rapid product and process developments. So it's endemic to the system. It's built into the system. Customers want newness. They want more functionality. They want more fashionable products. But companies are also locked in a competitive process, trying to outwit each other, trying to make better products and outperform their competitors. So there is pressure within the system all round to bring out better products, cheaper products, more fashionable products with more functionality. And this is all part of the innovative process that's ongoing. It's relentless. Innovation that leads to product modification may fail in the market and lead to an alienation of long-standing customers. Costly market research may be needed to avoid failure. And that's the problem. Sometimes companies, in their rush to try and beat their competitors, may come up with innovations that are not attractive to the customers. And this is why it's imperative that there is good market research. There is a good marketing team who will feed back the sentiments in the market regarding change. And also, customers can have a loyalty to old products. Often we see shops selling products which were fashionable many years ago, because there's a nostalgia amongst customers who want to continue to buy those. It's important that the firms are aware of what customers require. It's important that they are up to date. Otherwise, the companies may produce products which will turn against them. It'll alienate the customers. It'll generate a bad reputation for the business, and it'll enable competitors to step in and take their market share. Generally speaking, however, innovation is welcomed as it leads to a better quality of life. Generally speaking, we all benefit from innovation. There are downsides to it, of course. On computers, we have viruses, and we have people who are trying to destroy the goodness of the idea. But if we ignore those, computers have brought immense productivity and entertainment and a better quality of life to us. We have televisions that are smart, televisions that we can rewind. We can rewind a television program. Historically, it was always believed that the signal would come from a transmitter, and it was unidirectional. It came from the transmitter to our television, and we received it at the instant. Now, of course, we can pause a program, rewind it, we can store it and look ahead later. These are all benefits. So generally speaking, we welcome innovation because it leads to change, and generally speaking, the changes are beneficial to us. We like them. There are three types of innovation. The type of innovation depends on the time it takes for customers to adapt to the new product. But we can identify 3 different types. Some products are quickly adopted by customers and some take much longer. So the timescale for customers to adopt the product can vary and can influence the rate of innovation. It really relies on the degree of changes the product brings to the customer's lifestyle. Consumers, we have certain lifestyles. We like to live in a certain way. And if a product is going to radically change the way we live, we may be resistant to that product because we don't want to change the way we live. We, generally speaking, we quite like the way we live. We don't want too much change in a short space of time. So sometimes innovations have to come slowly, in a drip, drip, drip fashion. Small amounts, so we become used to it, and then the next innovation, and then the next one. But if we take a long period of time and look at the customer's lifestyle, of course we will see a really big change in the customer's lifestyle. But if you take it on a day-to-day basis, on a week-by-week or a year-by-year, the changes might be quite small. So the onus is on the producers, on the companies, to phase in the innovations in an acceptable manner. The 3 types of innovation are continuous innovation, dynamically continuous innovation, and discontinuous innovation. And this is what we're going to look at now. We'll start with continuous innovation. Well, continuous innovation is when existing products are slightly modified and introduced as new products. So very slightly modified. We think of an iPhone. As far as we are concerned as customers, the changes in one iPhone to the next may be quite small. Well, perhaps we can see it, but it's quite small. There might be additional functionality, but we're still essentially familiar with the processes. The same happens with Microsoft, and it happens with Google, and so the changes are there, but somehow we're familiar with the type of technology and how to use it. And it happens right throughout the home, it happens in the car, it happens in our lifestyles. So it's continuous, it's a drip, drip, drip type of change. It's important as products need to maintain their competitive stance within the marketplace. The technological change, the innovation, can't be too radical. If it's too radical, in effect, it's a new product. In effect, it is in a different market, which leaves the existing market to the competitors. That's not what the company wants. So the company may want to just change the product slightly and thereby gain a competitive advantage over the competitors. If it introduces a very big change, then the customers may see it as an entirely different product, and they may actually continue to buy the old product, which now gives the market, as I said, to the competitors. So, generally speaking, innovations are incremental. They're small amounts coming continuously. One version followed by the next version, followed by the next, and gradually customers are coming along with the product. The product is suddenly able to do more and more and more, and they're able to see slight changes, but welcome changes. But they're not big, radical changes in this case. Continuous innovation builds a brand's product line, and if it is successful, will gain market share. Customers want to see companies innovate. It creates an image of dynamism, of modernity, it creates an image of the company doing things, being active, researching, researching customers' requirements, researching the technologies, trying to marry up the technologies to the customer's requirements and produce products that customers will want. And yet the customers are familiar with the products. They're not throwing over the product completely, they're just simply adding more to it. The products can now do more. And if the companies are successful in doing that, they will gain market share. Then the competitors will have to do it as well. Continuous innovations are easier to adopt for customers since there is little or no learning curve. And that's the point. The customers don't really have to learn something new. Go back to the example I mentioned earlier with the iPhone. Each version of the iPhone will introduce quite lots of new functionality, but the core is still essentially the same. So that an iPhone user can pick up the phone and still get it to work. And the changes are made easy. But it not just the iPhone, it happens with the Android phones, it happens with television sets, it happens with cars, it happens with washing machines and vacuum cleaners, and it happens with everything. The changes essentially build on the customer's knowledge base. The customers have learned how to use it in the past, they've gone through that learning curve, and now the changes that are being introduced are in line with their experiences. So the onus is on the innovator to make the innovations easy to use and fits in with what the customers already know. Otherwise, as I said, it may alienate the customers and the company will lose market share. The degree of change depends on an assessment of changing customers' needs and also on marketing strategy. Customers' needs can only be really determined through marketing strategy. The marketing department must go to the customers and see what the customers are thinking and see what they're saying and see what the lifestyle is and see what is happening in the marketplace and put it all together to try and determine which way the customers want the development, what's important for the customers, and feed this back to the organisation, back to perhaps a research and development department within the organisation. The ideas will have to be thought about, planned, delivered. There are many processes to go through in developing a product, an innovative product, even a product with small changes. It may require testing and focus groups, and it may require market testing in selected areas, and there are many stages before the product is released onto the general market. The point is that the marketing department and the innovation department, or this perhaps technical innovation, depends on the type of innovation we're talking about, but the marketing department and the innovation section of the business must link together. They must talk. And the marketing department, who know what's happening in the marketplace, and know what the competitors are doing, and know what the customers want, they are pivotal in getting direction for the innovative process within an organisation. They're the ones who drive the direction of the innovation. Changes may copy the most successful product in the market, and these may be owned by competitors. It may be viewed as a form of piracy, sometimes not. But I can't remember who set up the initial mobile phone, which eventually morphed into a smartphone, but somebody came up with it. I think it was someone like Ericsson or Nokia, or some of those, but eventually others got in on the act because they saw it was a big market and they saw it was a good idea. But the same happens with so many products. Hatchback cars didn't exist many years ago. The idea of opening the back of the car with a door that opens up the complete back of the car, that was innovative. And from memory, I think it was Fiat who initially came up with that idea. I may be wrong about this, but now nearly all manufacturers have hatchbacks because the original one was so popular, and then the rest wanted to copy it. And this is what happens all the time. Someone comes up with a good idea, it takes off, the customers really like it, but the other competitors in the market will eventually want to copy it. They may vary it and try to vary it as much as they can, but at the same time they want to copy it. They vary it because they don't want to get into legal trouble for copying, be accused of copying. But at the same time they want to copy it because it's successful. So there is a tension there. And as to whether it's illegal or legal, well, that's for the courts to determine. Whether a copyright or a patent, or a patent as some people say, whether that's been broken, that depends, of course, on the interpretation of the courts. But the competitors want to copy the most successful. At the same time, they want to vary it slightly. And there are models in economic theory that discuss this explicitly. For example, those of you familiar with economic theory will be familiar with monopolistic competition, which is based almost entirely around this idea of differentiation. Now, let's move on to dynamically continuous innovation. Well, dynamically continuous innovation, this requires some degree of learning and change in behaviour on the customer's behalf. So here the customers have to make an effort. This is not intuitive. It's not based on anything they've had before. There is a difference. They have to learn how to use it. In this case, the existing product is modified to meet changing customers' requirements, or the business decides to introduce new technologies in an effort to stave off competition. The process requires customers to learn how to use the product. So in this case, the innovation is quite big. It's a big change. It's such a big change that the customers have to learn how to use it. They have to know how to turn it on, how to use it, how to turn it off, and so on. There are rules, in a sense, about this product. It's not intuitive. And often we see this with cars. We become familiar with driving a particular car, and eventually when the car wears out and we replace it with a different car, we almost have to learn where all the controls are again. Because it's new. And there's a learning curve. We have to become familiar with the car, get used to it, and before we become entirely skilled in the use of that car and the use of all its functions. But the examples are here. Smartphones. Each generation adds innovative functionality. And that's what's happened with smartphones. Now smartphones have extremely sophisticated cameras. They are, to a large extent, very similar to dedicated cameras. But they've also got video recording facilities and video editing facilities, and they've got television built in, streaming television. They've got radio channels built in, streaming again, as well as making phone calls. So smartphones have become computers. They are computers in your pocket. They're not just for making phone calls, they can do a lot more. They can send messages and emails and They can do many things that computers can do. And that's a big change. But all of those changes have to be learnt on the part of the user. They're not intuitive. The user has to go onto the phone, install an app, learn how to use the app before it can access its email, or his or her emails, or access a particular radio station. This continuous innovation. Well, this continuous innovation are radical changes in products, or introduction of new products that change the way we live and our lifestyles. This is full-blown innovation. This is total innovation. This is something new. In other words, the company is innovating the market. They are innovating it totally by the introduction of something that was not there before in any form. This is a totally new idea. There are many of these around. Vacuum cleaners, when they first were introduced, there was no such thing as a vacuum cleaner, which at that time was called a Hoover, after the inventor. So Hoovers didn't exist. Then when more people started to make them, they were, in a sense, renamed by the market into vacuum cleaners. But the idea of cleaning the house by sucking up the debris and the dust and so on, that was new. Prior to this, it was a brush and dustpan to try and clean up houses. This was a totally new idea. Now it's been innovated again by wireless. Sorry, not wireless. Well, it is wireless. There are no wires. So I was thinking of wireless phones. But there are no wires. They are separate battery charged apparatus that can go around and clean the house. And there are yet even further innovations which are robotic, which means vacuum cleaners can now work out the layout of the house and go around when no one's around and clean the house. These are radical changes. These are big changes to our lifestyles. This continuous innovation requires major change in attitude, behaviour and lifestyle. We have to adjust to these. Go back to smartphones again for a moment. When smartphones were introduced, a lot of people thought, nah, it'll never take off, or it's not worth having, or I don't need one. And now they're almost ubiquitous. Most people have some sort of phone or some sort of and perhaps a lot of people will have smartphones. Perhaps a lot of people have smartphones and they don't use all the functionality, but they still have one. But there is a change in attitude. We see people walking around the street making a phone call. Well, historically, you would have to go to a phone box, or in the privacy of your own home, make a phone call. Now we see people on the street making phone calls. We see people in shopping malls stopping to make a phone call or send an email. These are big differences in the way we live, and they require differences in our attitudes and our behaviours and our lifestyles. Time needs to be invested to learn the new product, simply because it's the only product in the market. When something totally new arrives in the market, we have to learn how to use it. And we have to spend time learning how to use it. A lot of the products are not intuitive. They are sophisticated. They are intelligent in the sense that they have been programmed to be almost sympathetic to us as customers. They try to make our lives easy, but it still requires effort on our behalves to learn how to use it. For example, personal computers and the internet. No one would say that personal computers was a bad idea. We use it so much, We use the technology so much for healthcare, for finance, for our lifestyles, for education. People make education courses available online. We can learn online, which is remarkable. And that sort of advanced thinking is permeating all of society. It's spreading throughout all of society, all of societies. Children at school are able to do complex mathematics by simply typing in formulae and answering particular diagnostic questions and pressing the return button and getting sophisticated answers. And it's for the children to interpret what's happened rather than go through the mechanics of trying to calculate it. There are so many applications from personal computers and the internet. And that's a radical change. When Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the internet, when Tim Berners-Lee managed to send the first messages and make contact remotely with other sites, that was an innovation. Little did he think that it would go on to change the whole world, which it has. So we have three types of innovation that we need to consider as we've looked at here. It's important that you make a note of these three and understand the differences between the three, what distinguishes one from the other. That's the purpose of this particular class. And that's all I'm going to do here, so let's leave it at that. And let's say, well, I've got a slight conclusion, so let's have a look at it. I was just about to say finish. But in general, innovation is desirable as it improves our lives. However, the introduction of an innovative product is similar to the launch of a new product. It therefore requires resources and also market research, and it involves the risk of market failure. So any change to a product can lead to market failure. The customers may turn against it. It requires resources. It requires thinking about design, delivery, marketing, everything about it. It's like a new product, although it's based on an existing one. But there is a danger that having designed it and delivered it, it will be rejected. Innovation and modification helps to keep a product fresh and thereby help to maintain its competitive advantage. That's the whole idea of innovation, is to try and create newness and attraction. And finally, and it is genuinely finally, in the case of discontinuous innovation, the customer must dedicate time and effort to learn how to use and maintain the product. So innovations are changes, and that means we have to learn how to use the product again. There might be small changes, in which case the learning curve is not too bad, it's tolerable, or it could be quite dramatic changes in the product as a consequence of innovation. And if they are quite dramatic changes, there may be quite a steep learning curve, and we have to learn quite a lot. So that is genuinely now the end of the video. It's important that you know the three parts, as I said to you earlier, and it's important that you're able to discuss the role of the innovative department in terms of their ability to design products, deliver products, but more importantly, design them in the context of what the marketing department suggests are good ideas and what are acceptable. Look at the way in which design departments try to ameliorate the learning curve, try to reduce the amount of learning and complexity that the customers have to face when a new product comes on the market, to make it more acceptable. And look at the competitive process with companies trying to jump in front of each other with innovations and changes. So it's an extremely important topic, and it's one that you should be totally familiar with. So now, genuinely, let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.